They didn't just ask her to leave, they threw her out like yesterday's trash. Ilume's wrapper tore as she struggled to hold on to the door frame. Her son, Roy, clung to her waist, crying. "Please, this is my husband's house," she begged. Luke didn't even blink. Behind him, the old man cleared his throat like a judge delivering a final sentence. Tradition does not beg, and just like that, the door slammed. Dust rose like smoke, as if the house itself was ashamed. Ilume sat on the ground, holding her son, her eyes no longer crying, because something else had replaced the tears. Fire. But this story didn't begin here. It began with a phone call. A few weeks earlier, Daniel stood in his grand living room, phone pressed to his ear. "Yes, I'll come," he said. From across the room, Ilume froze. "Who was that?" she asked. "My brother, from the village." Her face changed. "No, don't go," she said slowly. "I had a dream. It wasn't good." Daniel laughed. "My dear, if dreams could kill, I would have died since secondary school." But Ilume didn't laugh. "Luke has never liked us," she whispered. Daniel waved it off, already packing. "Nothing will happen." That was the last promise he ever made. Because 2 days later, a call came, and this time, it didn't bring a request. It brought death. Daniel had an accident and died at the spot. By the time Ilume returned from the burial, she didn't know she was coming back, not as a wife, but as a stranger.
The same house that once welcomed her with music now rejected her like it had amnesia. Ilume stood outside, staring at the locked gate. This was where she laughed, where Daniel carried her on their wedding night. Now, even the walls looked at her like, "Who are you?" Roy sniffed. "Mama, are we going home?" Ilume forced a smile. "Yes, just not this one." They moved into a single small room, a place so tiny even silence had to squeeze to enter. That night, Roy asked, "Mama, why did Uncle do that?" Ilume paused. Then slowly she said, "Some people don't just hate you. They wait for the right time to show it." That night, a seed was planted, not in the ground, but in a child's heart, a dangerous seed. Days turned to years. Ilume walked like someone racing against hunger itself, selling, cleaning, surviving, and every night she reminded Roy, "Never forget what they did to us." At first, Roy didn't understand. Then one day, he stopped asking questions because the seed had started growing. And it wasn't love, it was hatred. By the time Roy turned 15, he no longer dreamed of success. He dreamed of revenge.
Some children grow up on milk. Roy grew up on memories. Not sweet ones, bitter ones. Every story his mother told was like adding wood to a fire. "Don't forget, they humiliated us. They took everything." Roy nodded each time. But inside, something was changing. His heart was no longer a heart. It was becoming a furnace. At school, he was brilliant, but not because he loved success. No, because he needed power. Success is the best revenge, people say. But Roy didn't want success. He wanted destruction. Years passed. The small room became history. Roy became a man, a wealthy one. Sharp suits, expensive watches, a smile that never reached his eyes. And one day, he returned. Not as the boy who left, but as the storm coming back to the village. He heard about Luke, business failing, struggling. Roy smiled. "Perfect timing," he whispered, "because revenge is best served when your enemy is already weak." But Roy wasn't just planning to hurt his uncle. He was about to destroy something much bigger. Revenge is funny. It always smiles back at you before it bites. Roy sat in his office, legs crossed, calm. On the table, documents. Luke's company, slowly dying.
Roy leaned back. Let's help it die faster. He began buying shares silently, piece by piece, like a hunter surrounding prey. No noise, no warning, just patience. Meanwhile, Ilum watched her son, proud but uneasy. Her sister, Gloria, visited one afternoon. She looked at Roy, then at Ilum. This boy carries too much anger. Ilum frowned. He has reasons. Gloria shook her head. Hatred is like fire. It doesn't ask who started it. It burns everything. Ilum looked away. I just want justice. Gloria sighed. Be careful. Sometimes what we call justice is just revenge wearing church clothes. Ilum didn't respond, but somewhere deep inside, something trembled.
All right.
While warnings were being
Thank you,
ignored,
Sarah.
Roy had already
Hold
taken
on,
control of his
please.
uncle's entire company.
By the time Luke realized what was happening, he was already inside the cage. Meetings stopped, calls unanswered, debts rising. Luke sat quietly one evening. His wife watched him. You should go and apologize, she said. Luke scoffed. For what? For what you did. Silence. Then she added softly, sometimes problems don't start today. That night, Luke couldn't sleep. The past kept knocking. Ilum's tears, Roy's cries, the door slam. Finally, he stood up. I'll go see her. Meanwhile, Roy received confirmation. The acquisition is complete. He smiled, poured himself a drink. Finally. But he didn't know. Someone else was about to make a move. Ilum received a message that would change everything. Luke wants to see you. Some meetings look ordinary until they rewrite destinies. Ilum sat quietly, phone in hand. Luke wants to see you. She didn't tell Roy. Maybe, just maybe, she wanted closure. She entered Luke's car. Awkward silence. Then, I'm sorry, Luke said. Just like that. No pride, no excuses. He handed her documents. The house, everything, it's yours. Ilum's hands trembled. After all these years, peace was finally knocking. But peace came late. Too late. Because as they drove, Luke pressed the brakes. Nothing happened. Again, nothing. The car sped forward. And in that moment, time slowed down. The next sound would change Roy's life forever. Revenge was finally served, or so Roy thought. He lifted his glass, smiled. The job is done. Wine touched his lips. Victory. Then, his phone rang. Hello? Sir, your mother, she was in the car. Silence. There was an accident. The glass slipped, shattered, just like something inside him. No, no, no. He ran. For the first time in years, Roy was afraid. Not angry, afraid. At the hospital, the truth was waiting for him. The doctor didn't speak immediately, and sometimes silence is the loudest answer. Your uncle is critical. Pause. Your mother didn't make it. Roy froze. No, she wasn't supposed to be there. His voice cracked. This wasn't the plan. But life doesn't follow plans, especially wicked ones. Roy fell to his knees. The fire he had carried for years finally burned him. But the worst was still coming, because the law was about to knock.
They didn't come with anger. They came with handcuffs. Roy sat quietly, numb. Roy Daniel, you are under arrest. Words floated around him. Attempted murder. His mother's death. Everything collapsed. Days later, Luke visited him. Weak, broken. I won't press charges, he said. Roy looked up, confused. Luke sighed. I am guilty too. Silence. Hatred brought us here. But forgiveness doesn't always restore what was lost. In the end, fire leaves only one thing behind: ash. Roy sat in the empty family house, photos in his hands. His father, his mother, gone. Tears fell silently. All this for what? The revenge he chased had taken everything. Not his uncle, not his enemy, him. Because hatred never fights fair. It doesn't destroy your enemy first, it destroys you. Be careful what you carry in your heart, because one day it may carry you to your destruction.